Greetings! It is I, Tentus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the EARTHDAWN Roleplaying game system. When we last left off, we were talking about summoning. We were discussing this, of course, in relation to your magical ability to summon a spirit. But let's talk about the types of spirits. So first off is task spirits. Effectively, a task spirit is one summoned to complete a specific task. It's exactly what it sounds like. Their capabilities are limited to effectively accomplishing that specific task. Oftentimes, many spirit summoning spells are what creates task spirits, though there are some talents that do it. The rules governing both the summoning and the abilities of these spirits are set within the spell or talent that is appropriately summoning them. Now there's also then elemental spirits. Elemental spirits are based on one of the 5 elements which I described previously, and effectively they are the purview of elementalists. They are normally summoned by them. Ally spirits are strange spirits that usually originate from some deep nether realm. They're more mysterious than elemental spirits, and the netherworlds they come from are unfathomable. They are either things that originate from those nether realms, or there is a possibility that they are the spirits of a deceased name-giver. Regardless, ally spirits are the purview of nethermancers and traditionally summoned by them. Imbe spirits are a name given to this type of insect-like spirits that come from unusual nether realms. They're traditionally associated and almost called horrors, though they aren't horrors. They're something completely different. Now, a name spirit, of course, is usually a name giver, the spirit of a deceased name giver. But this is not necessarily the case. Any spirit could technically get a name, and if it is a spirit of a certain type with a name, it will be governed by the rules of that type of spirit. But the thing is, to summon a spirit with a particular name, you are not only required to know the name of the spirit, but to have a pattern item of said spirit in order to summon it. Now, aside from task spirits, all spirits have a basic rating, which governs the level of their abilities. Many of their abilities are based upon this rating that they have, and the numbers are according to that. It's also important to note that an adept with the talents to summon and communicate a spirit doesn't mean you'll necessarily understand a spirit. They have alien mindsets, different than our own, so though you can communicate with it, understanding or reaching some kind of level of agreement with it is not necessarily something that can be accomplished. Now, there are 3 basic steps to, of course, summoning a spirit and having it do an action for you. Of course, you have to make your summoning test, determine the duration it will be there, and then determine the number of tasks the spirit will have to accomplish that you have set for it. Each of these steps is accomplished in turn, and I'm going to describe each of them to basically give you a basic idea of how to summon a spirit. So the summoner makes a summoning test to begin with, using his summoning talent, whatever is appropriate. The difficulty for this test will, of course, be the spirit's spell defense. Now, unless you're trying to get a spirit with specific amounts of powers, you're going to assume that you're going to summon a generic version of the spirit, which is listed in the Game Master's Guide. If you summon a high enough rank to allow for excess powers, it'll be up to the Game Master to determine what those powers are for your spirit. As soon as you are trying to determine specific powers for a spirit, then it will increase the difficulty. For each power that you are trying to choose that your spirit specifically has, you increase the basically target number based upon the spell defense by 2. So if you choose 1 power, it increases by 2. If you choose 2 powers, it increases by 4, and so on and so forth. And this adds to the spell defense to determine how difficult it is to successfully summon this spirit. If the test is still successful, the spirit arrives in astral space near to the summoner, and will remain there for the duration of the summoning, doing tasks that the summoner has for it to the best of its abilities. You can communicate it with certain abilities, depending, of course, upon your discipline, will have these specific talents which you can use to communicate with your spirit. Now, to determine how long your spirit stays, you will make a willpower test. The result is the number of minutes that your spirit will be staying around to serve you. If you have if you're disciplined with the summoning talent, you can instead make a willpower half magic test and use that to determine the number of minutes. You are free to use blood magic to supplement this duration. By taking strain equal to your wound threshold, you can increase these minutes that you would have gotten from your willpower test or your half magic test to hours instead. If you take a blood magic wound, then instead you increase the duration that you would have had from your willpower test or half magic test to days. Once a spirit has been summoned, the summoner can basically call upon it to help with a number of tasks, a number of services. These services can be anything from assisting the summoner in some kind of task, or perhaps enhancing some of their magical abilities. The full list of basically spirit powers are listed in the Game Master Guide and give you an idea of what a spirit might be able to do in order to assist its summoner. Now, the result level of your summoning test is what you're going to determine the number of services that you get from the spirit. If you have an average result, you are getting one task, and for each result level above that, you get an additional task, an additional service. These spirits will do the services to the best of their abilities for the duration that they are summoned. And of course, you could always complete a task, a service, and go to the next one, and any services that are remaining when the duration exceeds, then they are lost. So you must use the services that you got within the duration of the spirit being summoned. Most of the time, a spirit is willing to do whatever service that you put upon it. Though there are times it may complain or become reluctant, very rarely will it outright refuse to do the service you've tasked it with. If for whatever reason you are having difficulty, you could attempt to convince the spirit in order to do the task related to it. But this can be very difficult to do, and actually much more difficult than using the Contest of Wills, which I will be talking about in the upcoming episode. Though Contest of Wills, if you use that, you tend to anger the spirit and displease them. So you have the choice of attempting to convince them if they are resisting, and perhaps not getting it, or to perhaps even anger them if you're forcing them with the Contest of Wills. Now, a summoner could also attempt to bargain for more services than their result level would have allowed. By doing this, you attempt to convince the spirit much the same way you try to convince it to do a service that it was reluctant to do. Or again, you could attempt to use Contest of Wills in order to force it to do. But it is important to note that regardless if you're trying to convince the spirit to give you extra services, or you're using the Contest of Wills, this takes up time. And many times, the spirit's duration that it is summoned for is measured in minutes. Precious minutes you're eating up trying to basically get a few more services out of this spirit. So, that's it for today. I talked about spirits some more. First off, I talked about the types of spirits that you may summon. The task spirits, elemental spirits, allied spirits, invase spirits, and of course, name spirits. The basic 5 types of spirits you may summon. Of course, name spirits are classified as a subgroup of all the other types of spirits. They're not really their own thing. They're a named task spirit or named ally spirit. But regardless, they are in a way treated differently. I talked about the basic steps of summoning. First off, that you have to make a summoning test to determine if you successfully summon it. Either generic spirit or one that you've customized for higher difficulty. I talk about the duration, which should be measured in minutes, but using a bit of blood magic, you can measure it in hours or even days. Then I talked about the services that you're going to be rendering from them. The base amount is equivalent to your success level on your original summoning test. Could be 1, could be more. You're going to have to find out, well, how successful you are. And the fact is that you can attempt to either convince a spirit to do more, which might be difficult because they are alien in nature to you and might not grasp the same concepts. Granted, if you're doing something that seems within the purview of that spirit and trying to bargain another extra task from that, they might be willing to do it. But it's this difficulty of trying to convince something that doesn't think the way that you do. On the other hand, you could always use the Contest of Wills, which I will be talking about. But that might anger the spirit, and, well, if it has a chance to, might not treat you well for that. But regardless, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about persuading spirits, including that Contest of Will, and perhaps repeated summoning of a spirit. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon, link description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.